it's hard with so much of this, social media, so many things in these kids' ear, so many reminders. Back when I played in the as kids in the 1900s, you only had to deal with the one day media day with the meeting. After that, if you read the Kansan, but you didn't have to see it or deal with it. Now it's nonstop and it's changing moment to moment for these kids.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank. If you're thinking about starting a business or know someone who is, check out Emprise Bank's SBA loans. It's always good to know your options, and they can be your partner in possible.
Welcome to the Booth Review. I'm your host, Brandon McAnderson. A lot of people call me BMac. Glad you are joining us here for the UNLV week as KU gets ready to face the Running Rebels at Sporting KC Stadium. Hey, podcast listeners, would you like to earn an extra $500? Go to bluewirepod.com/survey and complete the Blue Wire audience survey about you and your podcast listening habits for a chance to win a $500 gift card. The survey will help create a better advertising experience for audiences and in turn help this show. That's bluewirepods.com/survey, where all you have to do is answer some simple questions for a chance to win $500. Make sure to read the full terms and disclaimer, plus complete the survey for a chance to win. bluewirepods.com/survey. The link will also be in the notes of this episode. So, the Kansas Jayhawks traveled to Champaign, Illinois to face a Power 4 Big Ten team on the road. Kansas was favored anywhere from 3.5 to 4.5 points. That line got tight, and watching the game, you could see why. Two pretty evenly matched teams. Kansas defense came out with their hair on fire, dominated the line of scrimmage. They were able to do the same thing on offense, but the passing game had some continuity issues. It's a first-year offensive coordinator in Coach Grimes. So there's some continuity stuff with system and personality that has to get worked out. And unfortunately, there is no preseason in college football. All you get is these 12 games to figure it out. In that opening road game against Illinois, there were just some hiccups, not just with connecting the front end to the back end, but even on some route depth and some different kind of things on communication. We are going to get into the recap of all the game information. We're going to have a guest join us to do so, a KU legend that many of you will be familiar with. But let's start with the three things that I loved about this football game. Number one, offensive line play. This Kansas offensive line completely dominated the Illinois defense. They were able to open up rushing lanes pretty consistently through the night. I thought that Logan Brown being a top 5 prospect out of high school, and when he went to Wisconsin, there's kind of been that, he's a 5-star. What's he going to look like? Last year he was banged up. Man, he was in complete control. He looks the part for sure. Long-armed, able to move his feet really well, very physical at the point of attack. But, it looked easy. He made it look easy. He made a lot of people wonder about this Illinois defensive line. I think Illinois' defensive line is pretty talented, especially on the edge. This Kansas football team made quick and easy work of them in the run game and in the pressure game. If you think about statistically, looking at offensive line play, what kind of box score statistics do you attribute to their performance? Well, let's start with tackles for loss. The University of Kansas allowed 2 tackles for loss. One was on the second to last drive of the game. Jalen Daniels had a inside zone read. Looks like he misread it, but that was one where the player was unblocked. So that was one of the tackles for loss. The other was the reverse play where Q wasn't able to hold on to the football. He recovered it, ended up losing 7 yards. That's it. 2 plays, 2 tackles for loss allowed in the game. One was a mishandle on a handoff. The other was a play where you purposely do not block the guy, you read him. So that's just how good this offensive line was. No tackles for loss. And really almost no pressures. I could count 1 pressure on the second to last drive. There was a interior pressure over one of the guards. But that is a really clean game to go a whole night and have 1 pressure. He was sacked on the final play on the attempted Hail Mary. So that did go in the stat book. But ultimately, they were able to shut out the Illinois defense from getting any sort of pressure up front. That is a credit to this offensive line. And not only that, they were able to push him around in the run game. If you just take the run plays, the carries and run plays by the running backs. They averaged 7 yards a carry. It was 22 carries for over 150 yards between those three guys. The offensive line was dominant. The backs were making people miss in the hole, breaking tackles. Just a wonderful performance by those guys. And you've heard Coach Grimes in the press conference talk about, wanting to get them the ball in the most important times and in crunch time. And I think you will see that on the uptick, especially after that performance, not just by the running backs, but by an offensive line that looks to be as good as an offensive line as we've seen at the University of Kansas. And that's saying something, because the last couple of years they've had really good offensive lines, as evidenced by Dominic Pooney on Monday night, getting highlighted by Bill Belichick and all these different things. So these guys can play. We came in expecting them to be very good, and they've maybe exceeded expectations with their performance in that game on Saturday night. And I expect them to continue that on Friday night against a good UNLV defense. Number two, the things I love, the three-headed monster at linebacker. Marv, Cornell, and J.B. Brown. Marvin talked today about, having the ability to, how much safety has helped him see the box plays, see the running back plays, see the movements and big gaps. He was so physical. He was last year, he was the second leading tackler that was returning to the team. And you can see his impact on nearly every play. Had a forced fumble out on the edge on a screen play, had a sack when he was blitzing from the linebacker position, played some safety, but mostly played in that hybrid position where he was just awesome. He was awesome. His ability to be a pass defender, but also be physical in the run game. And he's just a guy that's played a lot of football. So when he sees it, he's able to react pretty accurately and pretty confidently, because he's used to seeing it, playing so much football at Purdue, coming to Kansas and continuing that career, and now really putting him in a position to have a dominant defense. And then Cornell Wheeler, man, this guy, his ability to, he's not a big guy. He's a 5'10", 220 type of player, but lots of speed, lots of explosiveness. I think the thing that really surprised me in the game on Saturday was I shouldn't say surprised, but really stood out was his ability to take on blocks on offensive linemen, hold off the block, maintain his gap, and then be able to tackle when the guy got to him. I thought he did a great job on Fagan of hitting him, fitting him up, lifting him, and putting him on the ground. They have just been able to find ways to be effective. And then J.B. Brown, every time he hits you, it looks like it hurts. It looks like it hurts. If you have a scouting report on Kansas defense, J.B. Brown is on it as an impact tackler, as a guy that can rush the passer and blitz. You can bring him off the edge. And then when he hits you, make sure your insurance is in check, because that guy is physical and can really make an impact in the run game. The third thing I love, the rush defense all together. I mean, in these first two games, you got to take the Lindenwood opponent, but Illinois is a team that went out and got J.C. Davis, who was the top returning left tackle at New Mexico. They went out and got a right tackle from Grambling. They have a Kreutz at center, who's a legacy player in his third year as a starter. They've got guys at every position, including tight end. They could not move Kansas at all in the run game. After the opening drive, they had a couple 7 and 8 yard carries on first down. Those plateaus were not reached again until late in the fourth quarter. They had a 10-yard carry. But beyond that, in the two games that they have played, they have not given up exactly one 10-yard rush to a running back. One. What that tells me is that they're not making mistakes. They're not playing hero-level football. Everybody is maintaining gaps, flying to the football, and getting there with bad intentions. You're not seeing missed tackles. You're not seeing gaps where players run through and you're wondering, man, that must have been someone's job, right? You're not really having any of those questions, because they're communicating on the back end. They're showing up with bad intentions and tackling. We talked about the trio of JB, Cornell, and Marv. Between the three of them in the Illinois game, 22 tackles, 1 sack, 4.5 tackles for loss, and a forced fumble. That's a mouthful. That's a third of the tackles that we had, and over a third of the tackles that we had in the game, just amongst those three players. That tells you that the second level of this Kansas defense is strong, and they are able to compete at a high level, but it's complementary football. You have to have, when you have linebackers in place that are having success like that, someone has to be having success up front, and a lot of people are having success up front. I thought Tommy Dunn Jr. played his best game in a Kansas uniform. I mean, from start to finish. I think he's a guy that has had moments from time to time, really good moments where you look like this guy's going to be a great player. But I thought that what he was able to do on Saturday is a kind of a little preview, a little appetizer for what he can be this season. He's just a big physical man that has the athleticism to get down the line of scrimmage and also has the athleticism to rush the passer, which he did get a quarterback hurry in that game. He had a tackle for loss. He was showing up on big downs in a big way. I thought he was awesome. This Kansas defense gave up 2.3 yards per carry in that game against Illinois. That is a huge number. That's if you just take out, they had a quarterback draw that got 18 yards. It's a good call. If you take out quarterback runs, they're giving up 2.3 yards per carry on handoffs to running backs. Like I said, that tells me guys are dialed into technique. Guys are dialed into the game plan. They're able to wrap up and get guys on the ground. This defense is giving up 79 yards per game. Now, I say all this to point out that if you're coming to talk about Jayhawk football or listen to me talk about Jayhawk football, you are going to get a healthy dose of optimism. And I left that game feeling really good about the Kansas team and their projections over the rest of this game. Rest of this season. If you looked at national pundits and the way that they talked about Kansas football, it was consistently about returning production on offense, returning Jalen Daniels, and returning a good offensive line and adding some interesting pieces that people were excited to see. For the most part, that has not gone on track. They only played a half of football against Lindenwood, and then they had really good moments in the game in Illinois, and then some moments that you wondered about their connectivity. You wonder about if they have a good understanding of things. So there was a lot of question marks during that process. But what there are not question marks about is how good this defense can be. I don't think that there was anyone that was projecting what the Jayhawks would be overall, just thinking about offense mostly. They're just thinking about JD, returning productions, and pretty good corners. But what you found is really good corners, really good secondary people in O.J. Burroughs, Jalen Dye, Marvin Grant, a linebacking core that's physical, that can fly around, communicate, and make plays, and identify. So this defense, if they can play at a championship level, the sky is the limit for this team, and everything that they want to accomplish is still out there. Everything they still want to accomplish is still out there. If you're holding a Big Ten team to 2.3 yards per carry, if you're holding a Big Ten team to 79 yards of total rushing yards after surrendering, probably 28 on the first drive. So you're talking about for the rest of the game, a rest of a 60-minute game, they rushed for approximately 50 yards, trying to run, trying to be physical. I love that late in the game, trying to run the football, they couldn't. Trying to run the clock out, they couldn't. Tommy Dunn made some plays. Dylan Woodkey is so physical. The first practice I saw him, he hit a puller and turned him into a folding chair. And I thought, my goodness, who couldn't use that? Who couldn't use that type of physicality at the point of attack? And now you get to see it on a regular basis. The play he made on the boot where the guy tried to escape the pocket, he was awesome in pulling him down. So these are just some of the things that I'm seeing on defense. These are some of the things that I love. And I think this team really has an opportunity to lean into its defense to get this team where it still has the capability of going. This team still has the capability to get to the top. As much as a loss can be disappointing, there has to be a certain amount of faith in the coaching staff that's standing before you. Because I'm going to tell you, Coach Leipold is a champion. He's a multi-time champion. This guy molds over the details, is focused on the details, has a program focused on the details. I'm not worried about this team for 1 minute. I expect them to bounce back in a real way, and I know this offense is going to find its rhythm, and we'll continue to talk about some more things from the game to highlight as we move forward into this challenge against UNLV. Look, they'll be at Sporting KC. They'll be in Kansas City, Kansas here this Friday to play UNLV, and if you are coming out to that game, do not forget your home field apparel. They've got some of the best stuff on the market. They just are able to play with nostalgia and authenticity in a way that makes you feel good. It makes you feel like you're at a tailgate just when you slide the shirt on. Some major stuff with over 150 colleges to choose from. We suggest you choose these Jayhawks, but obviously, choose whoever you want. So check them out. It's comfort, it's exceptional in its comfort. I mean, everyone that has an opportunity to wear this clothing and to represent their team comes through just with satisfaction, and they want to tell all their friends about it. Please visit the website, homefieldapparel.com, and just look at all the wide thing, that the selections. Like I said, they'll have Orange Bowl shirts, you name it, like vintage striped shirts, your favorite Jayhawk. I am sure it is on a shirt at Home Field. Once again, homefieldapparel.com. Use promo code PAYHEED24. Homefieldapparel.com. Use promo code PAYHEED24.
We appreciate you supporting KC Sports Network by listening to our podcast. You have helped us become the highest-ranked Chiefs podcast network in 2022 and 2023. And don't forget about our daily Substack newsletter, the best written analysis you can find on the Chiefs straight to your inbox every day. kcsn.substack.com.
We are now joined by the legend, David Winbush, number 22 in the program, number 1 in your hearts, obviously the scat back that took Lawrence by storm, able to juke and jive and get everywhere he needed to go. He is now joining us on the podcast. Dave, how you doing, man?
How you doing, BMac? Good to see you, man. I appreciate that introduction, man.
We got to show you some love. And like I said, I'm a Lawrence guy, so I was in the stands watching you go to town, man, watching you do work, and the relationship we built over the years, man, I've loved getting to know you. This running back fraternity and KU football family is going to continue to grow strong. And so I want to make sure I'm tapping in with you, brother, and making sure you have an opportunity to come out here and do your thing as well.
Oh, no doubt. I appreciate it, man. It's this honor to see you, man, and just to be a part of this Kansas tradition continual. I mean, I'm a Texas boy, but I don't know how much more Kansas I get. I go by the nickname Texas Jayhawk. My wife went to Kansas. I married her, obviously, and she's from Texas. So, I mean, we went up there, man, and that was one of the best things that ever happened to me. Going up there, didn't know how I was going to be, being in Texas most of my life, but being a military brat, I've seen some places, but, man, Lawrence was a treat and a delight, man.
Jayhawk through and through. Now, last Saturday night, we go out, we play Illinois. We end up falling 23-17. Some good things happen on both sides of the football. I thought the running backs were awesome. You're a running back. I'm a running back. Let's brag about running backs. One of my favorite quotes of the week was from Coach Grimes last week, where he said he wanted to see each player, in terms of Devin Neal and Deuce Highshaw, he wanted to see each player add a little bit from the other. So he wanted to see a little bit more speed and elusiveness in Deuce's game, a little bit more power in Devin's game. Now, I thought Devin played extraordinary. I thought his power was on full display. But, David, I'm going to talk about the play without even referencing the specifics. But you remember going down into that end zone opposite the bowl where the guy is in the hole and Devin Neal makes a miss. And it's one thing to make people miss in the open field. It's a whole nother thing to make people miss in the hole. In the hole where they don't even touch you. Just describe his growth as a player and his emergence and what's possible with him as this season progresses, because this guy seems to be at his best, really peaking at the right time.
I know, man, and you said, and he's a great back, man. He excites me when he runs, but it's still like real, like unassuming. It's not flashy, but it's still like, oh, there's a flash. He preserves it and he does it when he needs to, man. I think I read today what he's 551 yards from being an all-time lead rusher in Kansas. So, like, the production speaks for itself. Like you say, people don't, probably see him and I look good on paper, but when you watch this kid, and I watch every play that night, I mean, just the patience that he displays, the power when he needs to use it. Like I say, he's a good-looking size back, but, I mean, he understands where his bread is butter, and he understands how to, maintain. And you don't have to take those hits. Don't take them. That's got nothing to do with your toughness. That's being a smart, instinctful running back, and that's some of the things you can't coach. You can give kids drills. You can, tell them what aiming point is, footwork, as well as I do. But when the game happens, 9 times out of 10, people aren't where they're supposed to be, and you got to make things happen. Or when you've been used to running the zone or running ISO, and you don't have to make a cut till you get to the second level, but somebody's flashing right now, you got to make a move and then get back to the point of attack. So, I mean, he embodies all those traits and characteristics, man, of a great running back, and it shows because he's producing. Not that it's about the record books, but that stuff's going to come, and that shows. That's why he's up in the record books. That's why, we're a successful offense. That's why he can outrun an attack was dubbed as one of the, him and Highshaw dubbed as one of the best duos in college football. I mean, so, and I saw, Morrison got a little run, So, I mean, just the fact that we're being so productive in the run game. First of all, is a credit to the O-line, like you said earlier, but just the fact that these guys, this coach that has enough trust in these guys to say, hey, we don't have a drop-off when we put another guy in. Obviously, there's different types of runners because they give us what we need. I know Highshaw is known for that tough, stiff arm, and he's going to run through the first guy. Devin McNeil is a mixed bag. Devin Neal is a mixed bag. You never know what he's going to give you, And so, it's exciting. And I think just to be able to do the things that he does are those things that you're meant to be a running back. Those aren't things you're not coached to do. A coach can't, hey, when he gets right up on you and he flashes because maybe someone came free, sidestep, shuffle cut, jump cut, that's just, it just happens, man. And oh my God, he's so good.
Yes, he is. And the thing that stood out to me about Highshaw was using his speed. I thought there was a couple instances where he had to use his speed to make stuff happen on unblocked players in the hole. He did that. What was interesting about that is the RPO game. The RPO is a numbers game. And I know a lot of people that are not familiar with it see it as, why aren't they running the ball? Why aren't they running the ball? They were running the ball. These are called RPOs. They're called run pass options. And really, they're not as, I don't want to say that they're not complicated because they are. There is some sophistication to it, but it is simple. It's counting. It's counting people. And if you're counting people in the box as a quarterback and you see, oh, that's one too many. Now we need to throw the ball out wide. So I think that's what kind of got into the, why are they calling a pass here versus a run? I think they were all runs and they were just fitting to the play call. But at the same time, these running backs were running into heavy boxes. They were running into unblocked players and had no problem dealing with it. So like I said, I am always the king of optimism. And how could you not be optimistic about being able to run the football that effectively on the road against a Big Ten football team with numbers not in your favor and still be able to be productive? I love what that could indicate for this group moving forward, especially with the offensive line being able to move people the way that they have. So we know what happened in Illinois. We're going to wash it. We heard Coach Grimes say that the first thing that he showed the team today, or the team after the game, was practice reps. And he felt like the game was awesome preparation. Like, that is where the work can be done. That is where, he pointed out some clips. He didn't say specifically which clips or what was on the clips, but he used that to illustrate that growth needs to happen on the practice field for it to be realized in the game. And I think that that's a growing point of an offensive coordinator trying to instill his principles and his understanding of football into the players that he's coaching. Now, you've had a little experience with Coach Grimes. So just describe all the complications he's dealing with. First-year coordinator, veteran team, replacing a successful coordinator, right? A very popular coordinator. So just talk about like what it is like from your experience being around Coach Grimes and some of the things you've seen within his system, and what kind of things you think you'll see to continue to have him grow in this position and get this team to where it still wants to go.
No doubt. And you said it in the beginning, we talked about practice reps. I watched the press conference with Coach Leipold, and, somebody questioned him about, like, how do you get over this hump? First of all, like you said, you're the king of optimism. I'm not worried. As much as I love Kansas, I'm not worried, so that lets you know how far we've come as a football program. There's no overreaction. Yes, you want to get the dub, but Coach Leipold talked about being intentional on Monday, but being just as intentional on Thursday. And, that lends to what you said about Coach Grimes talking about watching practice reps. And, every rep is important. No rep is wasted. Every rep has a meaning, and that's things, as a coach and as a player, that needs to go hand in hand. I've met Coach Grimes on different, opportunities, most recently at Baylor, and Coach Bolfing, who was up there with him as well. I actually worked with him at McNeese State. And, those guys, they put the work in, man, and they are players, coaches. And, the different things that Coach Grimes did in Waco, a lot of too tight 12 personnel, a lot of shifting, trading, doing stuff like that, wide zone, that's kind of his, thumbprint, his benchmark of things he did. But coming in, like you said, coming into Kansas, what Coach Kolanecki did and just kind of this innovative offense, people didn't want to see that change. And, because we were successful, and hats off to him, because I know Coach Grimes came in, and I think they said it on the football game, but I read it somewhere where he said he came and he wanted to learn the terminology of what these kids already know, and then find a way to marry his philosophy. And that's all. That always takes time. Your philosophy as an OC but also, like I say, you're coming in a staff that's already there. You're coming in with experienced offense. So, like, it's not like it's a whole new wash and we're all coming in fresh. No, you're coming in and you're kind of just plugging in to something that's been going good, and you want that to continue, obviously, but you also, you can only do what you do. You can't be someone else. No one can be a better you than you. So I think it's going to take, not as much time people think. I mean, right now, the good thing about this whole deal is that our kids are experienced. Our kids are used to success and they expect success. So that's a different mentality in itself that, that maybe Kansas football in the past hasn't had. Last 2 years bowl game, so like they expect to make plays. And, I don't want to go back to Illinois, but I totally, if I'm a player, coach, alum, whatever, that's on us. We beat us. Kansas beat us. There was nothing I could say like, golly, we're never going to be able to do this. It was on us. But I think, Coach Grimes will get it right. He's been successful in many places. I think he's a hell of a coordinator. And like I say, just hearing that about him wanting to learn what the kids were comfortable with tells me a lot. It tells me that it's about the kids. It's about like they say, the Jimmies and Joes and not your X's and O's, and a lot of things. A lot of kids, they're not going to do anything for you unless they know how much you care about them. And, no matter what the tone, no matter in what fashion someone comes in, you still got to find a way to gain that trust. And on both ends, obviously, people talk about, coaches getting these players and they got to trust these players, but the players got to trust you too, man. You never know what you can get out of a player when they trust you. I mean, coaching high school, they say kids will run through a brick wall for you as long as they know you care. And that's not cliche, man. And sometimes you can't fake that. You can't fake with kids. You can't fake with, showing that you care, showing that you want them to be successful. This is not just another job I'm coming to. This is a place that, is special, is unique. That's, that's new money, and we have an expectation of winning, an expectation of excellence. And I think, Friday night and, KC Sporting Stadium and then all black, I had to wear my all black. I think they're back on track, man. So I'm excited about, not just Friday, but the future as well with Coach Grimes and the offense.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I think Coach Grimes is so accomplished. And when you get to that level of accomplishment, it's not an accident. This guy has been good everywhere he's been. Exactly. That's not the kind of thing that happens overnight. I know what I like about where he fits in this, and I'm glad you mentioned the 12 personnel and the trading and running the outside zone, because this team can do that. Like this team can line up and play like that. They have the people to do that. And I know, he talked about having to hold this play card and having so much information on it. So I know that they have the formations and the principles that he's used to. It is just a matter of learning each other and learning a rhythm and learning, getting a sense for what's good and what's needed amongst the players. And that does take repetitions that they just haven't had a ton of in live action. So I am confident that they will work that out. Jalen is Jalen Daniels, to me, ultimate Jayhawk, great person, understands accountability at the highest level, understands what he needs to do to be the best player that he needs to be. I have no doubts about his ability to get on track. One of the things, just from a perspective of, a fan, a guy that watches the game, I think that his previous stints at starting quarterback, one of the things I liked about him the most was his ability to attack the whole field, his ability to not just hit you over the top of the deep ball, but that intermediate passing game. And it's something that hasn't been present yet. I don't have any specific numbers on this. And thinking about the Lindenwood run was such a short run, but I can't think of an intermediate completion between 7 and 15 yards inside the hash. Like, I can't think of one. I can think of there was an RPO slant to LJ that went for about 8 to 10 yards. I just don't think that we're seeing some of the timing routes and some of the over middle, like, comfort food for a quarterback. That little, I got this big tight end, I'm going to put it on his body and we're going to get 8 to 9 yards. But it's like Coach Leipold said himself, there's this idea that Illinois sucks. They didn't suck. A lot of what was happening was they were playing man, and we didn't have a lot of separation. Our receivers and tight ends didn't have a lot of separation. If you're looking at like play action game and RPO, it's hard to run play action and RPO when people are playing man because their eyes aren't in the backfield. They're on the man that they're guarding. Exactly. So some of the misdirection and the ways in which Kansas tests people's eye discipline doesn't really work against that format of a team. Not only that, their ability to disguise coverage and play well in the back end. I thought Illinois played incredibly well in the back end. And that doesn't mean that Kansas shouldn't have won the game. But let's not pretend like let's not pretend like we played some scrubs. These guys were playing well in that game day.
Exactly. And they had the home field, they had everything. Even the commentators, Robert Smith, they were all pro Big Ten guys. Like, golly, we make a play like, oh, Kansas on the game. But then every time they made a little play, it was like, oh, big deal. And think about this, man. And it was two things I read. Think about this. Illinois student section stormed the field off a win off of Kansas football. And I remember a couple of years ago, Coach Leipold said something about the Oklahoma game when Caleb Williams had that unbelievable, whatever, illegal for whatever run. And he said there was a standing ovation for the kids and the coaching staff. And, he said they're standing and giving us a standing ovation for just playing close. He said, we've got to change that. And I think that's just a testament right there to, like you say, in that short period of time, man, of what the expectation, the national respect, that Kansas football is garnering, man. And like say, I've never seen that, it was some of these Kansas on the road, they're storming the field, because that tells you right there, one, they didn't expect to beat us, but, you got to play the game, so that's understand they practice too. They coaches get paid, they recruit, as well. But that says a lot, and at the end of the day, it's about wins and losses. But man, like I say, we're moving on, but it's just, there were some things that we're 1 or 2 plays away. We made it as hard as we could for ourselves. And I hate to keep going back, but it's like we get 3 drives stopped in Illinois territory, and we only come away with 3 points out of those 3 drives. Then we marched the field on 2 80-yard drives. We made it hard for ourselves when we didn't have to make it hard for ourselves. So, but you know what? These are still early season bumps. These are still, non-conference. But, yeah, we know with the whole college football playoff that, everything, counts. And they even have Kansas in that conversation, too. I watched Joey Galloway talk about not overreacting. 12 teams, 1 loss doesn't kill you. Whoever it's who doesn't kill you. So, for whatever, goals different Kansas fans out there had, they're not gone. Even Coach said that. He said, if you think our goals and our, dreams are gone, you're sadly mistaken. So, it's like I say, it's time to, put that behind us, man, and move forward. And we're going to learn from those mistakes. And this coaching staff, man, is top notch, man. I thought Coach Borland did a hell of a job. With the defense, man, like I say, you mentioned Grant and 44 Cornell, God, they were getting after it, man. Just getting after it. So, I was impressed, and I'm excited about what's to come, because there's a high octane offense coming to town. So be it.
Yeah. So let's get into it. UNLV, you're looking at UNLV. Now, everybody's thinking about them as a offensive ball club, and they are. But they've made a lot of improvements on the defense on the back end. After playing Kansas was able to bomb them pretty successfully down the field. They went and added a transfer from Texas. They went and added a longer, lengthy corner to match with their previous starter, Oliver. So they'll have some length and ability back there, and they're confident that they'll be able to try to contain this Kansas offense. But they do it on offense. They got an offense called the go-go system with lots of formations, lots of movements, lots of different player prototypes. Now, they lost their freshman quarterback, Maibia. I think he transferred to USC or Georgia. I don't remember which one, but was a really promising young prospect, as you can see. He goes to one of the blue programs in the country, but they replace him with a transfer from Holy Cross, who probably is a better fit for what they want to do. Yeah. Probably just a better fit for what they want to do. A physical runner, a guy that can still make some game plays in the pass game, but really changes and opens up their option game. And why I am optimistic about this Kansas defense against some option system is I didn't see a lot of mistakes. I didn't see barely any. Only one I can really think of was the corner route that they hit to Pat Bryant on that touchdown drive, where they got it down to the 1 yard line. Looked like Jalen Dye was trying to get Kobe onto the receiver so he could go on the tight end. And by the time the receiver got released, he was too far away. But other than that, I can't really. There was a back out that they missed.
Well, we gave a one touchdown, I think, on defense. I'll take that every day of the week.
So they were terrific. Now, what you've seen with UNLV and what you've seen with Kansas so far, what gives you optimism and confidence that this defense will continue to make it very hard to run the football?
So, thinking about the Illinois-Kansas matchup, Big Ten country, under center, ground and pound, they say physicality in the Big Ten is what's paramount. When you talk about the Big 12, you talk about high flying passing league, spread offenses. And, obviously that's prevalent in a lot of different teams. I mean, from Houston to, West Virginia, we're a passing league. And so UNLV comes in with a hybrid, type offense, which the go-go, which I love. I'll become an offensive coordinator somewhere. I'm going to throw a concept, but I mean, that's what our defense sees every day to an extent, as far as like, in the gun, play action, RPO, different like that. Just, they don't see a lot of, sidecar formations, if you will, a lot of times, but we've all got the film from the bowl game last year. So that's another thing, same offensive coordinator, same offense, different quarterback. But I tell you what, man, they've added some running backs. They rotated about 2 or 3 running backs. I saw that, in the last 2 games. But I mean, and it's kind of it's misleading. But I think they're averaging 501 yards of total offense per game. But they had a blow up. I think it was like 695 yards against Utah Tech. I think that's who they played. So, I mean, it's a little misleading, but nevertheless, like I say, our defense is only giving up 77 yards on the ground, and I mean 160 yards passing. So I'm excited about it. Like I say, not as experienced, but a defense that's been in the system, So same thing with this, but like I always, it comes down to quarterback. This kid is still, he's a transfer. He's got some maturity to him, but playing in the system, nothing replaces game reps, and he's got 2 games under his belt in this offense. Our guys have seen this offense, it's not like it's going to be foreign, like I say, we've seen it. We've got some experience getting in the bowl game last year. So I'm excited about us just flying around, making plays, man. We've got to get a hold of number 21. That dude causes problems. Jesus, he causes problems. And now, of course, I'm going to have a little soft spot in my heart because the small guy, he gets after it. Wherever they put him on the field, return, slot receiver in the backfield, he is a problem, man. I mean, he's a good player, man. Great kid, So we get a hold of him, he's what makes them go. I mean, obviously, Sluka's made some plays, and he's the new flavor of the team this year. But I mean, I think our guys, we can run, we get physical. Our D line gets after, man. Like I say, Cornell and JB and those guys running around. You never know where Grant's gonna line up. I love how we can still be multiple. We could look like a 4-2-5-1 alignment. We could look like a 3-3-5. We could look like just a straight 4-2. With a nickel. So I mean, I think if we just do what we've been doing, we'll be just fine. I don't think, like I say, no overreaction. The sky's not falling. Like I say, I think Kansas beat Kansas. And, sometimes it's hard with so much of this, with social media, so many things in these kids' ear, so many reminders. Back when I played as a kid, in the 1900s, you only had to deal with the 1 day media day with the meeting. After that, if you read the Kansan, but you didn't hear see it or deal with it. Now it's nonstop and it's changing moment to moment for these kids. So that's, another distraction that they have to deal with, and hats off to them for dealing with it, that, because I don't know how I would deal with it, after having a bad game, it's like they love you one time and then they don't, and so, but I think our kids will handle it. Like I say, it's a mature team. They'll handle it, man. And I expect us to get after it. I mean, they're going to come to town with some revenge on their mind, but you know what? That was last year. Same thing with our team. That was last year. So, 3rd game of the year, let's go get it. We got to get this win, man.
Absolutely. Yeah, I am experienced with things like, hey, did you read that article in the LJ World about you? And I'm like, no, I did not read that article in the LJ World or the Daily Kansas. Now, that thing wasn't attached to my hand, my heart, and my hip like these cell phones are today.
Right.
Well, I gotta reason with some of the struggle that they deal with some of the noise. I'm confident that this program is insulated enough to handle it. And like you mentioned, it's a benefit to prepare for a unique offense for a month, and that's essentially what happens when you prepare in a bowl game. Yeah. Once you've identified who you're playing, you get a month to prepare for them. Okay. Now, you come into a bowl game, obviously you're going to see some wrinkles because they have a month to prepare for you. Exactly. So. But what it helps you understand is base principles. It helps you understand the base principles of what they're trying to do. You're used to fitting it. You're used to showing up where you're supposed to show up. Franklin for Illinois was one of the top receivers. I think he's number 21 in touchdowns in the history of
third down machine.
So a good player. But if you look at his stats, 9 receptions for 99 yards. I mean, the guy didn't break loose. He had to earn them yards, and he did, and he earned them. And, when they go up against Ricky White is the same caliber of player outside. So and he complements De Jesus because they've got that speed and running back slot jet guy, and then they got Ricky White out there that can run routes. Yeah. I mean, they were trying to get him in the transfer portal with big numbers, and he ended up staying at UNLV. So good for him. And I think it'll be a fun matchup seeing him go against Melo and Kobe and Darius McGee on the outside. But I'm confident.
Let loose, man. We got to let loose and just play, man. We got to let loose and just play because we've got the guys to do it, man. We just got to let loose and play.
So they'll have no issues matching up on the outside. I think we can be confident about that every week. And it's something that I talked about, and something Coach Borland talked on a little bit today, is that we are in the era of short passing game, RPO, screen game. And the benefit to defending that is having good defensive backs. Because really, you can just leave them alone. And you can say, hey, corners, just make these things hard. And what's going to happen is these quarterbacks that are used to these single read and RPO looks, they're not going to be there. And like you mentioned, like Skook is a guy that is just getting used to the program, just getting used to the system. He's not going to have access to some of the easy throws that have allowed him to get into rhythm in these opening 2 games. So I think some of the things that Kansas does structurally will make it harder for them to get into some of those multiple things. Like you get 500 yards in a game, you score 70 points in a game. It's a rhythm thing. You're getting into a rhythm. But when you watch them against Houston, that wasn't a 70-point explosive offense. What they did better was they played defense better and they ran the football. They played defense better and they ran the football, and they kind of whipped Houston. They deserve credit.
They jumped on them. Yeah, they jumped
on them, and they just whipped them, and they deserve credit for that. And they're gonna, if they want to have a chance in that game, they know the recipe. So Kansas is going to have to match them wit for wit and go out there and battle them. And I feel really good about guys like Tommy Dunn Jr. I feel really good about guys like Caleb Taylor, because from a size perspective, UNLV is going to be physically much different than what we just faced against Illinois. They are not going to have the big men across the board that have the athleticism to play 2 gaps, to stretch to the sideline. They're not going to have that kind of personnel. So I feel good about our defensive line being able to control the game and play gaps out.
Yeah. And I mean, and it shut down a lot of that stuff too. I mean, I'm talking about penetration, because a lot of things with the zone read or that sidecar, you need a little time to, catch it, read. Let's just disrupt it right there, man. And, keep them vanilla, because that stuff, you start getting bad eyes, they could be a problem. But I think, like you said, we could dominate up front and we can leave those guys out there and, stick to them and, play games on the inside and, play Kansas defense, man. I'm ready for it. I'm ready right now.
Absolutely. One of the interesting things as well was how much we thought about replacing Austin Booker. And, you've got this marquee guy that's going to play in the pros. What's it going to be like to replace him? And we're thinking, Jeremy Robbins is going to have to step up and Dean Miller's going to have to. And they have.
Yeah.
But what's been interesting is that it seems like the defensive line, interior, exterior, are collectively so good. We almost don't even need a standout pass rusher as much as we just need quality players. Just describe what you've seen from the depth of that group. With you got veterans with Jeremy Robinson and Woodkey. You got young guys like Dean Miller and DJ Warner. And then you got Withers, you got Tommy Dunn Jr., you got Caleb Taylor, you got Flake Herod. You got guys that are, you talked about running back rotating 3 guys without drop off. We're about 6, 7 deep at one position on D-line, and it's no drop off. It's basically more unique players. So just describe some of the things you've liked from that group and how you think they'll impact this game.
Oh, man. And I know all them names you ripped off, I know them from NCAA football playing with you. Like, the thing about that, the first thing that, that stands out is consistency. You say you mentioned the depth, but, a lot of times when you're calling an offense and you're doing certain things, and if the D-line is a strength, what you want to do is get them running early. You want to get them running early, left and right. You want to use their speed against them because you want to wear them down come third and fourth quarter where the pass rush is not as prevalent. That's the first thing that steps out. We're going to be fresh 4 quarters because we rotate. These guys have got game reps. They know what to do and how to get after the passer and, chase the run, retrace and do all those things. So that is the biggest thing that stands out to me with our D-line depth, that we can rotate guys in and out, and that D-line, that pass rush won't, slow down come third and fourth quarter when we need big plays, whatever the situation may be, to seal the game, put the game away, or go, get it back to win the game, So I'm excited about those guys. And like I said, Jeremy Robinson, he made a couple big plays, and like I say, this is this year's team, and I think, Austin Booker, last year, like say, he just kept getting better, and if our D-line, like a crescendo, as long as we keep getting better, man, if we've got, and I mean this in no offense, if you got 6 poor man's Austin Bookers on your D-line, we're going to be one of the best, and I mean, this is a kid that, I think about Austin, he wasn't, known as well, coming out, but he made a name for himself. And I truly expect somebody, 2 or 3 guys on our D-line to do the same thing he did. And that's what it's all about, man. That's how good programs sustain. You see these guys ahead of you. You watch what they do. You see the reward. He's playing for the Bears. You see all those things. And now it's like, I can do the same thing. I got to put the work in. But, and so I think that's just overall depth is the word that I think, and quality depth. You can have guys on the roster, but I think quality depth is the thing that stood out, man, for our teams in the last 2 years, man. So I'm excited about that for sure, and number 10, what's his status?
Really?
I know he was banged up, but he's going to be ready to go.
Yeah, he looked like he doesn't have anything that's going to be bothering moving forward. He had some really good moments as well.
Yeah,
just high back player that's going to have an impact on the season. And like I said, we are feeling really good about this team and where we're going and this trajectory. Dave, tell them what you got going. Tell them about talking ball. They understand. You said sidecar, so they know you're into coaching. Yeah. So anytime you say sidecar, this brother's been looking at playbooks. So just talk about what you got going on, man, with your podcast and everything.
Man, I got a podcast going on. It's called Just Talking Ball with the Texas Jayhawk. It's based on Kansas football as a focus and forefront. But we talk about Big 12 football. I have a co-host who's a Texas guy who. Now we're going to have to talk about some SEC ball, not exactly. But, we've had, ex-Kansas players, yourself, I've had some other guys on there, man. It's just been fun. Just, giving a perspective, like you're doing as well, because we love Kansas football, man, and just, sharing what I was given. We do chalk talk. We talk about predictions. We talk about insights. If I talk to you, or if I talk to someone else, or if ex-players are texting me or calling me. So, every Thursday, man, we're going to start this week. We're going to start releasing the podcast. And so just look it up on YouTube, Just Talking Ball. And, I had to represent for my boys that are, you see it all here. Have a little dignity, but these are guys that came before and after me, man, that it's just, people can talk all they want. And unless you've been in it, and just like I could talk to you being in it, man, it's a passion, it's a love. And it's something like no other, there's fans and there's guys that, if you're a football fan and you didn't have the opportunity to play and you just like guys, or you say, oh, this team is better, that's fine. That's fine. But when you've been in it, man, it's a different feel and it's a different loyalty, to, something that you help build and, you continue to be a part of, man. So I'm ready, man. But yeah, I can't wait to see this, man. I can't wait to see the Jayhawks. Can't wait to see you, man, when y'all come down to Texas and, I'm ready, man. I'm ready.
Yeah, man. Jayhawk football, man. It doesn't get any better than this. Running backs. The brother's going to have to make a new shirt to get some room for Devin Neal. We will be playing. Yeah. And I'm going to need a copy of that shirt. I'm going to need that exact shirt.
I got you.
But thanks for joining us, Dave. We'll have you back on another week, and we can talk some more football. Check him out at Just Talking Ball. Check out the Jayhawks on Friday night against UNLV at 6 o'clock. I will go on the Crimson Blue Show at 4:30 if you want to hear me talk some more football. Thanks for joining us. This is the Booth Review. Peace.
All right, Rock Chalk.